Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 September Best Practice Summit. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to sign on, so we'll just wait a few and then you'll hear from me again. Thanks for your patience. All right, we actually have a great turnout so far, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to have you, and we have a great agenda here. My name is Allie Steinman, and I'm a Finance Transformation Leader here at BlackLine. I'll be your host and your moderator for today's event, and I'm delighted to bring you some wonderful presenters and fabulous content today. Before we get started, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The BPS is my favorite BlackLine webinar. Why? Because it's exclusively for customers. It's a space for you to hear from peers and experts alike on leading use cases beyond reconciliations and even beyond the close. Before we dive into the amazing content for today, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. There's a Q&A widget. This one is the most important. Please submit questions throughout the webcast. We highly encourage active question and participation because really this is your event. We really want to be able to take the time to answer any questions you have throughout, and we'll also have a final Q&A at the end as well. I'm sure you won't be the only one with your question, and your peers will want to hear the answer as well. We'll try to answer all of your questions during the webcast, but if a fuller or more detailed answer is needed, we'll follow up later via email. Also, if you're on a tiny screen or just want to see us presenters like we're in your living room, you can expand your slide area by clicking on the maximize icon at the top right or by dragging the bottom right-hand corner of the slides. Lastly, if you're having any technical difficulties, please click on the help widget. This is a question mark icon, and it covers common technical issues. Two of the most common issues you might be having, slides not advancing, or if you lose video sound. Often, if you refresh your browser, that will clear things up instantly. Now, as you may be aware, this webinar is eligible for CPE certification. So I'm going to go quickly through the CPE requirements. You can view your CPE progress in the CPE widget. In order to earn the full 3 CPE credits, you must attend the webinar for at least an hour and 50 minutes and complete 9 polling questions. Don't worry, we've added plenty of extra polling questions. There'll be 12 in total, so you can miss a couple and still be good. We'll announce each polling question and give you plenty of time to answer. Please click directly on the poll slides to submit your answer rather than submitting via the Q&A widget. If you meet all the requirements, you'll receive your CPE certificate via email within a week, and it'll come from cpe@transformation.blackline.com. You can, as I mentioned, you can track the progress of your CPE certification using the CPE widget. All right, now that housekeeping is out of the way, let's go ahead and get going. I know you guys are ready and eager to hear what we have on the agenda today. We'll begin our webinar today with a keynote from Molly Boyle on F&A First, a no-regrets approach to finance transformation. Next, we will hear from Jessica Tobin, a customer success manager here at BlackLine on achieving end-to-end automation. After Jessica, you will hear from Adam Wills, Financial Controller at Barnes, on their BlackLine transformation journey. From there, we will go to a short break and return to hear from RGP, today's event sponsor, and their client Nutrien on their phased approach to BlackLine implementation and optimization. Next, Stephen Wolfman, Director of Product Management at BlackLine, will highlight some recent product releases and touch on some customer favorite features. The next section is an exciting one. Hopefully, you are all registered or planning on registering for our annual conference, Beyond the Black. This year's event is in Vegas and finally in person again. We're coming back with a bang, and Michael will be sharing some special insider info and things to know before you go. Lastly, we'll wrap things up with the collaborative accounting experience and the resources available to you for your success, and have some time for Q&A at the end. Alrighty, now I'm going to turn this over to Molly Boyle, a finance transformation leader here at BlackLine, to deliver the keynote on F&A first. Before joining BlackLine 5 years ago, Molly was a BlackLine customer just like all of you. Metaphorically, she sat where you are today. Hi, Molly, and welcome.
Thanks, Allie, and thanks everyone for being here. Really excited to be back. This is actually, I think, my third Best Practices Summit this year. So I am, batting 100, if you will, for the baseball fans out there on my BPS appearances this year. Hopefully, none of you are sick of hearing from me yet, but rather excited to get another update and hear from some of our other presenters today. As Allie mentioned, my job is really to kick us off, to set the stage for and also to sort of share with you sort of the latest and greatest, some of the things we're hearing, as well as to remind you about some of the things you've probably heard from us before. But the exciting part, as I mentioned, is really all of the great content that will follow my sort of opening remarks here. I want to echo what Allie shared in the beginning there, that we really encourage and welcome your participation and your feedback throughout today's event. Knowing what you're wondering, getting your thoughts on what's useful and what's not will only make this and future events better. So thank you again for being here at the Best Practices Summit. And let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to share about 15 to 20 minutes of just thoughts and observations and reminders with you. And as a reminder, we're going to talk a lot about going beyond at Beyond the Black this year. For those of you who have never been to Beyond the Black, the event is going to be back and better than ever, as Allie shared. But we want to talk more broadly about going beyond really throughout today's session. So again, welcome to the Best Practices Summit. Thank you for being here. We hope that this event also will be back in person again very soon, and that we can all sit around tables, shake hands, and really share insights with one another again in person. But while we're still virtual, we want to thank you for being our customers, for being committed to your optimization journey, and for kind of taking the next steps and exploring the next steps, thinking about, today in this context, how you can go beyond where you are right now, wherever that is in your journey. There's always optimization opportunities. We're going to talk a bit about transformation today and what we're seeing with our customers and other finance and accounting teams. And I think, if there's one key theme I'm continuously seeing, it's that everyone is focused on this and nobody feels like they're done. So always thinking about how to go beyond, how to continue the journey should be top of mind for all of you. And I'm guessing that's why you're here. So before we really get going into some of the latest observations, I always love to see the progression of some of these sort of quantitative statistics and numbers that we at BlackLine use to sort of measure our growth and the growth of the people that we're impacting every day. A very exciting milestone for us here at BlackLine is that we recently sort of eclipsed that 4,000 customer mark. So you all are in very good company. We have over 200 of you at least joining us here today and rising. So glad you're here. Know that you're in good company, that there are thousands of other customers just like you across many, many countries around the world. And at this point, almost 350,000 users. That is a very large community that you are a part of. And you'll hear from our partner, RGP, later in today's presentation. You'll learn how much value our 75 plus partners can bring to your transformation. And whatever industry you're operating in, whatever customer or company size you work for, there are other customers and companies like you who are on this same journey and from whom you can learn. So we hope that is our goal here. We hope that you can get insights, that you can take away learnings and think about new ways that you can really go beyond. So thank you again for being here. I want to jump into just a few sort of observations lately, right? What are we hearing and seeing? And if you've attended a few of our other events, virtual or in person, you may have heard a few of these observations before. But what we know across the board to be true, besides what I already shared, which is that everybody's thinking about, transformation and moving ahead, is that there is an unprecedented and continued amount of change. What that change is has sort of evolved and continuously changed itself over the past few years. But we're seeing, business models continue to evolve. Last year in 2021, there were a record-breaking number of mergers and acquisitions in the marketplace. This year we continue to see companies sort of working to reinvent themselves, rethinking their people, processes, and technologies, and evolving business models is really a big part of that. Companies are looking for ways to maintain competitive advantage amidst all of the new complexities, competition, and what have you in the marketplace. And what that means for all of you, for all of us as finance and accounting professionals, is that there is an increasing amount of demand being placed on us in our function. And in a lot of ways, that can be exciting. We're being pulled into new and exciting decisions and offered to, looked upon to provide insights and valuable information to the business. But also, I haven't heard from a lot of accounting teams who have said, yeah, and I've gotten to, stop doing certain things, or things have been taken off my plate as I take on these new responsibilities. They don't have that luxury. And we're seeing accounting and finance teams needing to rise to the occasion of sort of supporting and enabling these evolving business models in their organizations. At the same time, we see these continuously high employee experience expectations, and hopefully that all include, that includes all of you, right? You want to work for companies who are, thinking about the future, preparing for the future, operating in a modern way, transforming, right? Using technology in many cases like BlackLine, right? That help make your experience and the way you work better. That continues to be a massive trend. Of course, last year we saw the Great Resignation, an unprecedented amount of turnover and people leaving jobs, a lot of sort of institutional knowledge sort of walking out the door. And at the same time, now we're in this, continued period of economic disruption where we see labor rates significantly increasing. And what I think that means for all of us, at least those in decision-making roles at their organizations, is companies are thinking about how they can continue to take on that additional work without adding headcount, right? Really doing nothing and continuing to just absorb additional volume and new work with, constant added headcount is likely not a viable model for many organizations. So it's really forcing this issue of needing to do something about it, finding ways to, automate what can be automated, reduce risk, and use the talent that we have to its highest and best extent. And I've really kind of already covered the third point here on expanding roles, but we continue to see, business partnership, other key, new decision-making roles come in under the umbrella of finance and accounting. We continue to see additional collaboration, or expanded collaboration, I might say, between the office of the CIO and CFO, right? As companies rely on data and technology, or data from technology, to make decisions, as IT systems become a bigger part of our key control environment in finance and accounting, we see this required collaboration. Really, I was talking to a chief accounting officer actually just last week, and he was sharing with me that the way he hires, the skill set that he looks for in this environment is very different than what he was looking for even 5 years ago, because understanding of systems, technology, and automation capabilities is a huge part that thinking outside the box is a huge part of what drives, excellence in finance and accounting organizations. So there's all this change going on. And at the same time, I'll be brief on this slide and build it out here for you, but you're continuing to face these same ongoing challenges that really, quite frankly, we've been talking about for some time. They show up maybe in different ways, or they're manifesting themselves as your organizations are changing and evolving. But there's tons of data, and it's coming from numerous different sources, and that's not likely to slow down anytime soon, right? As new innovations happen, as that creates new sources of data, as mergers and acquisitions happen, that creates additional sources of data and information, sometimes even converging different systems of records. And this creates, a lack of standardization sometimes across the enterprise, right? So you have processes that look one way at one entity and another way at another entity and so forth. Organizational design is we're continuing to see inefficiencies there. And I think a lot of that is driven by the amount of change that's happening, right? Where companies can't keep up with the pace of change from an organizational design perspective. So, they don't have the right people doing the right things, or in many cases, leadership doesn't even have the visibility it needs to what people are doing and how they're spending their time. And all the while, many companies still have dated, ineffective technology that includes spreadsheets and paper, although we see a lot less of that today. And I think the last one is driven by the points on that previous slide, right? A lack of internal resources and expertise that's available to support. I'm sure almost any of you, should have put this as a polling question, but I didn't. I'm sure that almost all of you on today's call at some point have had to respond to an email or, pick up the phone and tell somebody that you can't get to their question or you can't get to their request because you have to work through close, or there's some sort of compliance or reporting requirement that comes first. And so we continue to see that as a challenge, right? That expertise not being available when it's needed most. And this is really preventing you from focusing on that more strategic work, right? A couple of just compelling statistics here is that, almost everybody resoundingly, and this includes finance and accounting teams that were surveyed, just last year, told us that the time they have to spend on this compliance, accounting, and financial close related work is in fact getting in the way of their other strategic work. So that's kind of the barrier. And then at the same time, you have the pull, right? The 99% of CFOs who say they need real-time processes and operations so they can make better decisions. And so between those two, statistics there, something's got to give. We've got to be focusing on, working smarter, working more efficiently, so that so that we can enable the strategic work and rise to the occasion of these expanding roles. So we've come to our first polling question. For those of you who joined us after Ali welcomed you all and kicked off with some housekeeping today, we're going to have several polling questions, I believe 12 of them sprinkled throughout today's sessions at the Best Practices Summit. You need to answer most, or I believe at least 9 of them, to get that CPE. So I would like to invite all of you to respond to this first polling question, which is asking, how often for you is the time that you're spending on these critical processes like accounting, compliance, and financial close, how often does it inhibit your ability to focus on other strategic priorities? So we'll give everybody a few seconds. I can see here behind the scenes how many of you have responded. And I want to make sure that those of you who are after that CPE credit here get a chance to earn it. So we'll give everybody maybe about 30 more seconds to go ahead and click. And you just, choose one response here, of the 4, whether it's frequently, sometimes, rarely, or never. How often does your, critical compliance and close work get in the way of other strategic activities? We'll give you about 10 more seconds or so to respond to that polling question. And we continue to see more people joining us today. So welcome to those of you who are just now hopping on the Best Practices Summit. Really happy to have you here and excited for all the great content that we're going to share this afternoon. So with that, we have most of you responding, hopefully all of you that are looking for CPE. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. And this is just what I expected, right? In fact, almost frighteningly aligned to that 94% statistic that we saw just earlier on that previous slide, right? So it looks like, in fact, 94 to 95% of you are saying that either sometimes or frequently all of that work gets in the way of strategic work. So no surprise there, and you're in the right place. We hope that we can offer you some ideas of how to think differently and how to make progress, which is what we're going to talk about here. You all, if you've been to a best practices summit or if you've attended a recent BlackLine event, you've probably seen the next couple of slides. I'll cover them briefly, but I always like to come back to these and to remind you of these because ultimately this is so fundamental and so easy for all of us to understand, which is really ultimately for us as finance and accounting professionals, the value that we can bring to our organizations is based on how we spend our time. So when you think about that, if we're all spending the majority of our time, right, on that work that's important and has to get done, but we're not spending it on some of these strategic things, what opportunities does that leave us? And so what we want to focus on and what BlackLine is really aligned to and driven by is helping all of you think about your time and your capacity and your team's time and capacity and how it can best be optimized. All of these sort of three corners of this triangle, if you will, managing risk and compliance, optimizing business processes, and aligning to your corporate strategy or CFO or CEO's objectives, all of those are important. And you have a limited amount of time in the day, to spend. What we see amongst many companies, probably some of you included, even though you're already BlackLine customers, is that companies are still spending, and this is what we heard on the previous polling question, sort of a disproportionate amount of time in this sort of lower left area, right? Managing risk and compliance. And that limits the time you can spend on some of these other more strategic things. And as a reminder, these lists of priorities, these strategic initiatives that you're being asked to contribute to or weigh in on are all over the board, right? All kinds of different corporate initiatives, not necessarily just finance and accounting initiatives. And so we know you have a growing amount of things. I'm not going to even attempt to cover a few of the things on this slide, but this slide is intended to remind you in many ways, as I see it, as a glass half full person, the opportunity you have to make an impact. But we know this is a lot on your plate. So let's cover one quick additional polling question. And then I want to talk about, how you can all be thinking about this and approaching this in a really meaningful way. So which of the priorities, we just showed you a handful on the previous slide, are top of mind for you right now? And in this case, you can select as many as you would like. This is a multi-select option, I believe. So feel free to check as many of those boxes. We have things like, transforming your ERP, managing revenue, collaborating across offices, ESG, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you check those boxes, submit your response, and then we will go ahead and take a look at the results. And before I wrap up here, I'm going to share, some thoughts around approaching sort of continuous improvement and transformation with this idea of finance and accounting leading the way, finance and accounting first. So we only have about a third of you responding so far to this question. I'm not going to call anyone out, of course, but want to encourage those of you, especially who are interested in CPE, to please check those boxes and don't forget to click that button and make sure your answer is submitted. So I'll give everybody about 15 more seconds before we keep moving on. Awesome. Looks like the numbers are climbing up there now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. I'll give those last folks submitting just about 3 more seconds, and let's go ahead and see how we're doing here. Awesome. So a wide range of priorities. It seems like many of you are focused on all different things. Talent is top of mind, which makes sense, as is ERP transformation. So I think these next couple of ideas and slides will probably resonate with all of you as we jump into the rest of the content here. We want to talk about how you can approach especially ERP transformation, but really any business or digital transformation in a way that really drives no regrets, right? That starts with an important foundation. And as a quick starting point here, again, all of you are thinking about this. Your leaders are thinking about this. We just saw it in the polling question you answered, but 70% of CFOs actually felt that they would be at a disadvantage if they weren't doing this. So if you're working at an organization and you're tuning in today because your company really hasn't thought about transformation, I encourage you to be an advocate and to think about how you can make an impact. But really, the neat thing about our role and the, in my opinion, sort of optimal thing about our background as finance and accounting people, right, as sort of fiscal stewards of the organization, is that we are really in an ideal position in a lot of ways to help drive transformation. And we can do that with solutions like BlackLine in many ways. We'll get to that later. But we can do that because we can own our impact, and we can limit how much we depend on other departments, including IT, to really drive important, meaningful, and quick wins that set a broader foundation. And we'll do that by aligning to, those things that are top of mind. This is more than just the financial close. We talked about the theme of today being going beyond. What we're talking about here is finance and accounting helping deliver on some of the key objectives that leadership across the organization is trying to achieve by really focusing on reliable, consistent, more efficient actual results. And so, efficiency is key. It's top of mind. I've never heard, or certainly been a long time since I've heard of a company where leaders didn't want numbers quicker or information quicker and efficiently, right? How we use our time. So we know this is top of mind as companies approach transformation. At the same time, effectiveness is critical. If you can do something as efficiently as you would like, but at the same time, if you're not doing it effectively, right? If we're closing the books quickly, but full of errors, well, we've missed a critical piece here. So these two have to go hand in hand, effectiveness and efficiency. We know this is another sort of critical objective for especially CFOs as they think about transformation and experience. We touched on this already, but to the extent that finance and accounting can provide a platform, a set of solutions that can enable world-class work, you can also enable the retention of world-class talent, right? Improving that overall employee experience. And then agility. We talked about the amount of change, the pace of change in the current environment, and companies need to have solutions that can adapt and grow and evolve as their businesses do. That's really critical. And I think we see a lot of outdated IT systems and antiquated systems, being at this place of sort of this critical inflection point where there's not enough agility there and they simply can't keep up anymore. So this is what companies are striving for. And this idea of finance first, or finance and accounting first, enables all of those things: efficiency, effectiveness, experience, and enterprise agility, because it starts with a foundation that can be built upon, and a foundation that is well thought. And what we mean by that is, instead of worrying first about, sales or the revenue side of the business, or worried about supply chain transformation, for those of you who are in, industries that impacts, let's start and bring it back to basics. Let's think about data. Let's think about how we need to organize and view and use our data, and strive towards a unified data model. For us, that could be charts of accounts, legal entity structures, other key critical pieces of data. Let's figure out how we need to structure that data to make it useful. And then equally as importantly, let's make sure that data is accurate. And when you lead a broader transformation with a sound data model and optimized and efficient actual results that can be relied upon, that is what we mean by no regrets work, right? If you're focusing first on a predictive analytics or continuous planning, or some of the other sort of front office or more downstream processes which is most of them that rely on actual results, those processes are only as good as the data that's feeding into it. So that's why we are poised to lead. I hope that makes sense for all of you, but finance and accounting first is all about us leading a transformation with making sure our processes are world-class. Sure, finance and accounting doesn't generate revenue for the business, but if we make a mistake, or if there's an issue, or if we can't get to something, we all know how costly that can be. And so this no regrets approach of finance and accounting first really helps enable more downstream or more modern downstream processes. And ultimately, you can see this is all a continuous cycle of information that supports business decisions and helps businesses run efficiently. So if you think about this, a finance and accounting first approach really enables this integrated and continuous management of all of your financial operations. We're going beyond the close here, to bring back Allie's words and to bring back the theme. We're going beyond planning. We're going beyond reporting. We're connecting all of these things together in a meaningful way but they begin with that continuous compliant accounting. So as a customer of BlackLine, I hope that makes sense to you guys, and that makes the work that you're all doing every day even more meaningful to you. And all of that work, that no regrets work, builds resilience for your organization, will help you as you navigate all of the uncertainty we talked about earlier, right? You'll have more flexibility with your resources, whether that's redeploying your resources to more value-added things, whether that is saving costs by not hiring additional resources. All of that is building resilience. So is the manageable scope. We know that, costs are being looked at in this period of inflation and higher interest rates right now. The scope of, taking on a new use case or adopting a new cloud solution like BlackLine is super manageable compared to something like an ERP transformation, right? You can get those quick wins. You can build that rapid time to value, which is the next point here, and you can really move the needle for your organization. You also can provide more timely insights, right? Again, when those actuals are efficient and continuous and reliable, you're able to inform better business decisions. And finally, from a working capital optimization standpoint, when you think about some of our newer BlackLine solutions, which we'll highlight here in just a quick second, you can think about freeing up cash that's otherwise being held hostage on the balance sheet and really reducing the overall cost of finance and accounting to serve the business. So that was a quick drive-by. This is intended to be in a keynote. We're going to make it more real for you, especially in the next segment where you're going to hear from Jessica about some really, really meaningful end-to-end process automation. But I wanted to just orient you all to this idea of, finance and accounting leading a transformation and why we're poised to do so. Before we wrap up, I just want to leave you with sort of a reminder. Again, hopefully you guys have all seen and heard about the growth of BlackLine's solution areas and how we're working on innovating to bring it all together for you. There's going to be so much more about all of this at Beyond the Black. And so another reason we hope you all can join us in Las Vegas. But we now have solutions beyond the financial close, right? We have solutions around accounts receivable automation, around intercompany financial governance, and we're bringing real-time savings and real value to all of you across all of those areas and centralizing a lot of data from all of your disparate systems, ERPs, and sources by bringing them into the cloud and really modernize them. But we also recognize, and this is hopefully why you're all here, that the technology part, our platform, is really only part of the story. What we pride ourselves on with all of our 4,000 customers around the world is creating an experience for you that's really unlike any other, software company or other vendor that you deal with. We are committed to guiding your journey, right, and being with you every step of the way, bringing best practices and leading practices to you, like the ones you're going to hear from Jessica and our customers later in today's session, connecting you to that global community of expertise where you saw those numbers very early on in today's session, and staying committed to this space in finance and accounting, right? This area of finance and accounting modernization and transformation is not just something we do, it's all we do. And we, as the pioneer in our space, are committed to continuing to lead the way here and help you all really wherever you are in your journey. So we'll continue to provide a framework that helps you to go beyond and to get to the next step of your journey, regardless of where you might be today. I hope those were some helpful opening remarks. I'm really glad to, have been here with you all for another Best Practices Summit. And I'm going to pass it back to Allie so that she can invite our next speaker. But first, I believe we have one more polling question. So thanks, everyone, and back over to you, Allie.
Thanks, Molly. We're happy to have you again. I do think, unfortunately, we had some issue with this polling question. We already skipped over. So what we'll do, we did add some extras, but we'll go ahead and add an extra question on the back end to make sure that you guys have plenty of questions to answer. And I will now bring up Jessica Tobin to kind of to give you the end-to-end automation story and to really share with you. Molly shared with you the thought leadership aspect, the why change, why continue to transform your accounting and finance departments. And Jessica's going to come up today and show you some real life use cases. She'll point out some use cases in payroll and fixed assets and in bank reconciliations, and specifically open your eyes to what BlackLine solutions can do for you. Jessica, come on up.
Thanks so much, Allie. And thanks everyone for joining today. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Jess Tobin. I'm a customer success manager here at BlackLine. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And just like you, I'm a prior BlackLine customer. I'm a CPA, I have 15 years of accounting experience. And in my role prior to BlackLine, I was also responsible for identifying ways to automate our processes and lead most of our finance transformation initiatives. So today I'm going to be highlighting a few processes to kind of give you an idea of what's possible. If you have attended any of our optimization academies, this slide might look familiar to you. We've broken down month-end close into 9 key accounting processes. And what's really nice about this is if you tackle one area within a key process, you can likely apply the same method to automate another process. Say maybe you want to focus on prepaid expenses first, and then apply those steps to deferred revenue, and so on. If you haven't attended an optimization academy, I would highly recommend it. There are 9 sessions, and each of them cover these 9 processes where you're able to review like real world examples of how our customers are automating end-to-end process with BlackLine. Within those 9, we've identified 6 sub-processes, which would be a great place to start to transform on your transformation journey. We'll be talking about payroll, fixed assets, and bank recs today. Our ability to automate process is kind of dependent on using these capabilities right here. And a surprising number of customers don't realize that these are available to them. With these tools, we can enhance and transform your data as you bring it into BlackLine. You can use that enhanced data for your analysis within matching. You can validate it against itself or another source. You can automatically create journal entries based on the data source by itself or the results of your analysis, which you've performed in matching. When you're adjusting your entries when your adjusting entries are complete, you can automatically send your transactions to your reconciliation as supporting items. And you also end up with the visibility of those details on your reconciliation by being able to reference those the underlying data. Finally, you can automate your process of building out your roll forwards for your subledgers. That's super cool. That's something that I learned how to do last year, and and I'll go over it a little bit with you today. This slide probably looks familiar to you if you've been through any BlackLine presentations, but I think it's a really great slide because it highlights what we can take in from anywhere. We can grab data from many different systems and transform it and use it in either matching, journals, recs, reporting, or roll forwards. So the first process that we're going to cover today is payroll. And I had payroll was underneath me as an accounting leader. And, there are so many sub-processes under it. You have multiple journal entries that have to be booked and then multiple analysis that has to happen on those accounts. And this has really been identified as one of the top challenges of our customers because you could have multiple providers and multiple geos with different requirements, and not all of them, or sometimes none of them, are an automated solution to help you, record your entries. And even if you have some that are automated in a way to help you record your entries, none of them are helping you analyze your accounts after the fact. So I know it's a little bit backwards, but I'm going to start with going through the payroll clearing account process, and then I'm going to show you kind of how that relates to booking your journal entries. So the reason I chose this example to go over first is because you're only using one data source. You're using your GL account. So it's really simple. A lot of people think that if they want to use matching, they have to use two data sources, but that's not true. You can use one. You don't need the 2 sets or 3 sets of data for matching. You can compare the same set of data to itself. And in this case, we'll be comparing our debits to our credits. Or basically comparing our payroll journal entries to our payroll payments. So we'll begin with kind of a brief review of the data import definition, and then how we use pass rules and matching to isolate the unpaid transactions and kind of highlight the variances. Then we're going to automate, we'll use the automated journals to record variance amounts, and then that'll be sent back to our ERP to update the account detail. And then for the remaining unmatched transactions, we're going to use in transit to create non-editable reconciliation items directly on the reconciliation. Then next, once the auto certification rule runs, if any unidentified difference is within our stated tolerance, then the reconciliation will auto certify. So that's kind of the process that we're going to go through today. And we're going to keep it pretty high level for this, this presentation. If you want to dig a little bit deeper or watch a more detailed presentation, there is a coffee break out there on the community that you can reference. So first, we're going to dig into the import definition and pass rules. These features fall under the matching product. And I believe the two most powerful solutions in matching are the import utility and pass rules that you build within the matching engine. So those are the ones that we're going to cover.
I think first, Jess, before you jump into import utility and pass rules, I can tell you're super excited. We're going to actually have a polling question and hear from you guys on how much of your payroll process is automated. This will really give Jess some material to work with, so please answer and let her know if some of your payroll process is automated, if none of it is automated, or if all of it is automated. Hopefully and not hopefully, not all of it is updated so that you can really get some good information out of her upcoming session. We have about 40% of you guys answer, so I'll give you a few more seconds to make sure you get that CPE credit. Jess, what do you think people's response is going to be here? Some?
Probably some. You know, when I managed payroll, we had, some of our big providers, we were able to kind of automate a piece of those journal postings, but we had so many small providers that were really manual. So.
All right. Well, let's see what they say.
Some.
And you were right. About 70% have some of their payroll process automated. So I'll turn it back to you to get into detail on that exciting import utility and pass rules.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, let's jump back into what I think is one of the coolest features that we have. So the import utility. The import utility is the key to automating your process. This is where we take your data and we use the import utility to create a data source, not to match the format of the data, not only to match the format of the data that you want to bring in, but to enhance it, transform it, and append it to be the final data source that you use for your process. So you do not have to reformat the report to fit BlackLine. BlackLine will build a data source to fit your data. And I know we had a question in the polling about being able to pull in data from third-party sources. I think this was specifically for tax. And you can. As long as you have the ability to pull that data out of that third-party source, you can bring it into BlackLine and use it for matching journals or recs. And I think this is really powerful. Sometimes people think that it would take a lot of front-end work to format that data so that BlackLine can accept it. But really, you're telling BlackLine what to do. You're telling BlackLine that, hey, This is the data I want to use. These are the changes I want to do to it and create that data source. In the example I have up on the screen, you can see that the first Excel file up there has data where the formatting of the number of values, it's not really in a usable format for a system, for a BlackLine. And then also it looks like I'm going to want to add in the transaction type based on the transaction ID. So we can do that in the import utility. We can take basically two tables and merge them together based on a unique ID field. And this one, it's the transaction ID. In the next screenshot, you see the import utility screen. So this is, I think, step 3 or 4 on the import utility. And this is where we start to tell BlackLine how we want to build out our data source. And in this example here, this is where we are systematically telling BlackLine, hey, for that number field, I want you to remove the dollar sign. I want you to also make it, or change it to string, remove the dollar sign, remove the parentheses, make them negative, make it a negative sign instead of a parenthesis. And basically, you're turning it into a usable form, a usable field that we can now use to calculate on. We're changing it back to money. And so BlackLine knows this is a field that I'm going to use to in matching as subtotals. I'm going to use it in journals, entries, and it's going to be the amount value for my reconciliation items. So all of that can happen in the import utility. You don't have to make any changes to your third-party data, which is huge. That way you don't, what's can be hard is if you are dependent on your IT team to make these changes, sometimes they can push back your project. In BlackLine, you can do that yourself in the data import utility. Also on here, and I can't see if you can see it on my screen, but we've also used a lookup table to pull in that transaction ID. And you can see that in the bottom screenshot. In the bottom screenshot, that's the data source that you've created. So you can see our amount field is now formatted the way we want it in a usable format. And we've also included the transaction ID so that I can use that to create summary items on my reconciliation or summarize journal entry lines if I want to do that, or just provide more information to my accountants when they want to do their analysis. That transaction ID really means nothing. So at least providing a type is really helpful when they're analyzing their transactions. The next most powerful section, I believe, is the pass rules. So now that you have your data in BlackLine, now we need to use it. And pass rules really allow you to perform your analysis within matching by taking those manual steps you're performing in Excel and creating the pass rules to replace each step. So this is a great example. You know, I remember as an accountant, I'd have pulled down data from my GL detail, T-code, and SAP, and then I would do some Excel magic to match those data sources together and figure out really what was left. And there is logic there. I'm using certain steps in my head, even if I don't have them written down, on how I'm slowly whittling down that data just to the transactions I actually need to analyze. And that's what pass rules do. Pass rules allow you to take each step in your Excel file and automate it. So what I always do when I would build these was write them out first. And then I go in and I build a pass rule for each step that I would take manually. So you're taking, none of those steps were value add. They were essentially an Excel exercise. And so now you're at telling BlackLine what to do. And BlackLine does that non-value add step. And then you are left with just the transactions you need to analyze. In this example, I believe we're comparing 3 or 4 of the transaction headers. And then that's the rule. And BlackLine runs that. And it's a one-time setup. That's what's so cool about this, is that BlackLine does it for you from here on out. It's so cool. So those are your pass rules. And then once you build out all your pass rules, you'll run your matching engine, and then you'll be left with with some transactions that will match completely. That's a huge win, right? Those are all the transactions that you never have to look at. You'll have some that don't have an offset yet, and then you're going to have some that match, but there might be a slight difference in the amount, and that's really where automated journals comes in, right? Because you can't let those variance amounts sit on your GL. You have to take action on it, but they're probably small. I mean, this is payroll. You've booked your entry. Maybe this is just a rounding difference that's there. Maybe the tax rates changed slightly, and so the payment remittance was less or more than your journal entry. There's a little offset there. So we can automatically book those variances. You can have them auto certify if they're only up to a certain amount, or you can just have the journal entry created and then someone approve it. So that's what we're going to look at next. So here your matches clearly show you that there's some immaterial differences in your suggested matches, which need to be written off. And that's really nice how BlackLine does it. You can quickly scan through all your suggested matches and see that, hey, there's nothing big here. These can probably be auto-certified. And because this is immaterial and you want your team to focus on just the value add tasks, that's why you would have these auto-certify. This is not value add work. And the adjustment will go through the import and the matching processes, and then they'll match off automatically. So once you have identified your differences, you can create your automated journal definition. So here you can see we're just pointing BlackLine to the match set, saying, hey, I want you to grab all of these variances. And then below, you're building out your journal entry. You're telling it what fields in your data source you want to use for the headers and the line items, and just mapping those all together. And you're going to tell BlackLine who you want the preparer and approver to be, if you want it to auto-certify. You're giving all of that information to BlackLine here. And again, just like the past rules, this is a one-time setup. And then the next step is once you've created your automated journals definitions, now it runs. It can run, you can schedule it to run as often as you need it to run, or run it on demand. And once it runs, because you've set this to auto-certify, it's going to create all of those journal entries for you for those immaterial differences in your transactions, and it'll system certify. So this is all stuff that now your accountants don't have to touch, and they can just focus on the big differences, or the transactions that aren't matched yet. Make sure that those are accurate. And I do have a question on past rules. It is the only available through transaction matching. So your past rules exist within a match set. So when you are trying to use matching, or decide you want to use matching to analyze your data, you would create a match set, and then you build your past rules within your match set to analyze your data. Okay. So now you have submitted, your auto journals have run. They've now posted back into your GL. That GL data pulls in again to your match set, matching runs, and now those transactions are matched off. Because if you have a suggested match, they're still available to be matched. So when you book that adjusting entry, it just gets, those suggested matches are kind of still in the pool to be picked up. And now they grab those other transactions and they'll form a completed match. And yes, sorry, I have another question here on the auto certification, or the auto JE screen. You can request that the journal auto certify and not require a preparer. So now we're at the end of the process. We have just only our unmatched transactions remaining, and your unmatched transactions in your clearing account should substantiate your GL balance, right? These are going to be your transactions that were part of your entry that have not yet been paid. And that's where in transit comes in. Now we can help you automate the creation of those items in your reconciliation. So here within using in transit, you tell BlackLine what unmatched transactions you want set to your reconciliation. You can also tell BlackLine or in transit how to summarize your items. And that's where I would use those transaction IDs. So you've pulled the transaction ID in. That's a really meaningful description, right? You can send all of those items in as individual items, but that can get kind of messy. So why not summarize it by the transaction ID? And then you can drill in to those items and still see the detail, but at least the face of your rec is clean. It makes sense. You can very clearly see what's left out there on within your account. And what I recommend is, once you're comfortable with sending these items to your reconciliation and you're sending the correct items, to set them up to be non-editable items. If your items are created as non-editable items, then the remaining unidentified difference, if the remaining unidentified difference is less than your auto-certification threshold, your reconciliation will auto-certify. And if I progress the screen forward one more click, you'll see that on the reconciliation, once I've run my in-transit, I have my items that have been created in a summarized way. And because my unidentified difference is under $10, which is my auto-certification threshold, my reconciliation auto-certified. So here you've now taken that extra step out of that accountant's process of having to certify reconciliation that they don't really need to touch. The items that they've created have already been analyzed during the matching process. They substantiate the balance of the GL, and they're coming from your system, so you don't need to have anyone touch this reconciliation. So you put that all together and you've just automated your entire process. You might be thinking, well, we did a lot of setup. It didn't feel automated, but that's just the first time. All of those steps are one-time setups, and each one of those steps can be scheduled. So you can schedule the import of your data. You can schedule your matching engine to run. You can schedule your automated journals, and you can schedule your in-transit rules. So once you've built out your process, you're comfortable with how it's running, you can schedule everything, and now this becomes a touchless process. And then only if those differences are kind of outside your tolerances, then the accountant is triggered to review those. And it's really nice. Then they're focused on the work that is meaningful. And bringing it back to, I think you guys highlighted that keeping and retaining top talent is one of your key goals, and it was mine also. This helps with that, right? Your accountants, they've spent a lot of time on their education, they spend a lot of time in their career, and they don't want to be spending their time on non-value add work. They want to be spending their time on analysis. So you're giving them what they want with this. Let me take a look at my questions and see if there's anything that's jumping out here.
Yeah, you guys have been doing a great job submitting questions for Jess during this section. So please continue to do so. And before she moves on to bank recs, we'll be sure to address some of them here.
Yeah, and if I pass by your question, I will address it while another person is talking. So I will, you guys have done, thank you so much for being such active participants. This is so cool. I will definitely address these throughout the rest of the presentation. You do have the ability to clear one GL to another. Yeah, absolutely. So, if you have another GL account that you want to compare to, you can do that. Our example is comparing, the debits and credits within a GL here, but you can bring in another data source, which I'll highlight with bank recs. You can compare things that aren't even GL related. You can compare your point of sale to your credit card statement. You can, if you have a project where maybe you're integrating two different data sources and you want to use that, you can use matching for that as well. This is just a close example, but it really doesn't matter what you bring in. If you find an example or a need for it, you can build those data sources in BlackLine. And yes, so you can push those unmatched transactions to your reconciliation automatically. You don't have to, that can be scheduled. You can also schedule closing those items, right? Because sometimes they can get forgotten. So really, really good questions on here. I'm going to keep going, but I will come back and make sure I address all of your questions. I don't want to forget to tie this back to journals, right? So we kind of jumped ahead, right? We jumped to after the journal is booked, but the payroll journal, the accrual, those are all journals you have to book as well. And you can still use the import definition to create those data sources. I think a lot of payroll systems, even if they don't integrate with your ERP, they do create a nice file for you to use to record your journal entry. And in that case, you would just create a data source to import that file to, and then you can use calculations and lookup tables to add in the right values for your journals. You can create lookup tables to bring in the GL accounts you needed for each type of transaction on that payroll entry file that you get, and to build out that data source. So depending whether it's your accrual or your payroll entry, you can build out the data source as you need it to match your intended use. So you can do calculations in there, you can do lookups to bring in your GL accounts, and you don't need to use matching. And sometimes people don't realize that you can just build a data source and use it for journals and use it for in transit. I have one customer that uses it almost exclusively for journals, and I'm actually working with them to get them to use it more for matching as well. But it's a really powerful tool. Think of the workbooks you probably have in place right now, where you have multiple spreadsheets that all feed into one summary data source, and that's what you use for your journal entry. We can build that. We can build that final tab for you that you can then use to create your journal entries. And for your accruals also, if you're using your import definition to pull in the data you need to calculate your accrual and then book your accrual with your automated journal, if you've already told us what your accrual should be in your data source, you can also use that to populate your reconciliation with what your accrual balance should be, which hopefully substantiates that account after that journal is posted. So you don't need to use matching to use the import definition and create a data source. You can just create your data source and use that data source for JEs in transit. Let me another look at my questions here. Okay. Gosh, such good ones. So for the journal, and there was a question on the journal entry source, an additional source, and the match set. So when you're building out your automated journal, you can either reference the data source you built, like you would here for your payroll entry, or you can reference the match set. So you can choose what you want to reference when you're building out your automated journal entry. It's a great question. Okay, I think I'll keep going. Otherwise, I will go way past my time. I really appreciate all the questions, though. Okay, so next we're going to cover bank reconciliations. And, we really kind of jumped into the weeds here with the payroll clearing. And so I'm not going to dig too deep into this, but moving your bank recs into BlackLine, it's not only going to save your team time by automating the process, but you're also going to create a standardized, controlled, and systematic process that you can run daily. So your cash balance is always up to date. And I think that's what's, super helpful. And I think you talked about like what goes beyond close, right? And I think taking these processes, even the payroll process, taking it out of close and moving it into a daily process, that takes a lot of stress out of the close process. That creating that kind of that continuous accounting that we used to talk about a lot by using, matching and bringing in data on a daily basis is super helpful. So here we have kind of a standard bank reconciliation process. And as I mentioned, we've already gone into what the import utility looks like, what automated journals look like and in transit. So I'm not going to present slides on those. I'm just going to kind of talk through this process. But, don't know about you, but our bank rec process was really manual. And I'm curious, like how many of you are probably still doing a lot of that work in Excel. Comparing your GL data to your bank data, I'm understanding what transactions need to be recorded or what's truly outstanding, or better yet, like what transactions have matched but there's a variance, or maybe it's a variance because there's an embedded bank fee and then having to record that bank fee. I think my favorite part of reconciling bank reconciliations was like the batch processing, right? You'd have, 10 checks that you'd have as deposits in transit, but the bank would recognize it all as one bundle that they received, and then trying to figure out what checks go with what batch process. Well, BlackLine has pass rules to help you with that, to group transactions and help you figure out or deal with the batch processing. That was always fun to do manually, but BlackLine helps you with that, and because bank recs can be so time consuming and complicated, that tends to be one of the first use cases that our customers implement. It's generally one of the biggest pain points of close. And I don't know about you, but cash reporting was due on day one for my team. And it's a lot of pressure to close like one of the highest volume accounts that quickly on day one. And so let BlackLine help you. Let BlackLine help you make this a daily process. So when you get to close on day one, it's really just looking at that prior day's transactions, and BlackLine's looking at it for you. Your accountant only has to look at any outliers. And for this process, we're using 2 data sources. So 1 data source for payroll, 2 now for banks. We're comparing the bank to GL. And we accept most standard bank format files. So again, BlackLine is aligning with the file that we're going to receive, not the other way around. And we also partner with like Kyriba. So if you are already sending bank files to Kyriba, then we can get that bank file through an integration with them instead of your bank. Because sometimes working with your bank can be challenging. I know it was for me. So why not take advantage of the partnership you already have with Kyriba? And the benefit here too is if you're going to pull your bank file in, we can grab the bank balance. So if your bank balance, your bank template you use for your reconciliations, it has a field for your bank balance, and we can automatically populate that bank balance by you just bringing in your bank transaction file, which is great, right? Because now these are all steps to auto-certifying your bank reconciliation. You bring in your bank balance, We do analysis within matching on the transactions that you've brought in. And then we take those unmatched transactions and we create items on that reconciliation for those unmatched transactions. And if those items make up the difference between your bank balance and your GL balance, well, your reconciliation can auto-certify. Super cool, right? We can really automate kind of the end-to-end process there. I think, let me take a look at some more questions here. Let's see.
Jess thanked you guys before, but I just want to reiterate how amazing it is. We're seeing so many great questions come in on these processes, and I just want to thank you guys again for the engagement. It's really great. We'll make sure, if we don't get to your question, to follow up with you guys and be sure to answer. Love this engagement. We really, really like to see it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. These are such great questions. So we do pull in the BAI files and MT940. We also have, I think, 2 other standard bank formats. And I got a question about APIs. We do have ingestion APIs. So that is something that you can use to pull in data for matching. Let's see. I have a question on the bank file consolidation company name. I think that was maybe Kyriba. Kyriba is a treasury product that my company used, and they have a relationship with a lot of banks and are able to pull in the bank files there. Oh gosh, there's so many questions. These are so great. I'm gonna keep going, but I will make sure to answer your questions on here. I think what a great, I also want to point out here that Groupon was able to reconcile 85% of their cash reconciliations. That's huge. I have a lot of customers that are at like 90% for their match rates for bank transactions. So you can really pull a lot of work off of your accountant's plate by matching up those transactions and just leaving like the items that need to be analyzed on your accountant's plate. It's way easier. And then it's also easier to do daily. A lot of times the barrier, I think, to doing cash recs on a weekly or daily basis is the transaction volume. By taking 90% of those transactions off the table, it makes it a much more feasible process. All right, I think we're ready for the next polling question.
Perfect. So here we are at our next polling question. I want to give everybody the chance to focus their attention here and be able to get those CPE credits. So our next polling question, are you still using Excel spreadsheets to compare your bank and GL transactions? So you just explained how life can be with BlackLine instead of using those Excel comparisons. So hopefully we get a good number of you just identifying and seeing the possibilities that you can achieve here. We're getting some good responses, about 50% right now, so I'll leave this on for a few more seconds, but just want to be able to hear from you guys before Jess moves on to fixed assets. All right, I'll give you about 3 more seconds and then I'm going to close this poll. Are you still using Excel to compare your bank and GL transactions? Let's see what everybody said. So we have about 37% as yeses, 25 no's. That's great. Really glad to see that. And you're probably one of those customers that Jess mentioned tackles bank recs as the first use case because it's one of the most painful processes that everybody goes through. And then we have about 39% for some accounts. So Jess, I'll pass this back to you.
Thanks. I'm excited to see that a quarter of you are not using Excel anymore. It's huge.
Yeah, very exciting to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure your accountants love you for that. All right. I have another question real quick on bank recs before I move into fixed assets about are there pre-processors that can help you put the data into a format that BlackLine will accept? And yes, so if your bank files are coming in, they aren't one of the formats that we accept, we can still build your data source for you. It just takes development effort. So the formats that I stated, BAI, MT940, I think JIS, and I believe there's one more that is escaping me right now. If it doesn't fall, if it's one of those formats, you can build it yourself. And that's what is so super cool, is that you don't need development effort. If you do fall into the other formats that aren't covered or aren't selectable on the import definition, then development can help you with those. These are such great questions. Thank you guys again for asking questions. It definitely makes it more interesting for me. So fixed assets. There are a few ways that we can help you automate your fixed asset process. But I'm just going to review roll forwards today because, we've covered bringing in data, comparing transactions to each other. We can help you automate your journal entries. We have reconciliation templates that are great for subledgers. So there's a lot that we can do, but the roll forwards tend to be the ones that are the most surprising. So I'm going to just jump in to that. So if you were at last year's Beyond the Black, you may have heard Tammy mention roll forwards to you. And if you have been lucky enough to attend the Optimization Academy, there's a whole session on roll forwards. And this was really news to me. And I thought it was so cool. I wanted to share it with you all because I don't think that the link between matching and reporting is highlighted very much. And also roll forwards rely on another functionality that we have that I don't think gets a ton of attention, and those are data source rules. So when we talked about the import utility earlier, we talked about being able to kind of reformat fields and bringing in additional data using lookup tables. But lookup tables are great for a one-to-one comparison. If this cell says this, bring in this, which is great. If you have multiple lookup tables, you need to bring in multiple, data. But sometimes you might have a multiple conditional statement, which would say, if these three fields are these three fields, bring in, or let's categorize those as additions. So data source rules can kind of help you with multiple criteria field creation, I guess. Let me jump in, and it'll be more obvious with an example I'm going to show you. In our example here, we have a lookup tables. We're bringing in our GL detail or subledger detail, and we're going to use the import utility to enhance the data, and then we're going to use data source rules and lookups, and then from there we'll use the reporting to create our roll forward. So here we have the data source that we've created using the import utility, and I've highlighted or circled the columns that I've created for this process. And the first two columns circled the roll forward group and roll forward section, those I populated using a lookup table. So I think that those are just based on the account for the transaction, whether or not it was a fixed asset. Should it be in assets? Should it be in intangibles? Is it depreciation? So just kind of setting the stage for how our roll forward looks. And I want you to close your eyes and think about what your roll forward looks like. And I know for mine, we had it broken out by assets, depreciation, and it was kind of grouped by that. And so right now we're just setting the stage to create those categories of transaction type. And then keeping your eyes closed, it's a roll forward, right? So you're going to have your grouping on your left side, and then across the top, you have your categories of what's happening in the period. You can see your disposals and your additions and your transfers, and that maybe the FX impact, across the top. And the next column, the third one that's circled here, that's what we're doing. We're creating the categories to go across the top of your roll forward. And to do that, we need some help with the data source rules there, because there can be multiple things that could be an addition. There could be multiple criteria to say what's been a disposal or what's been a transfer. It's not maybe as simple as this is the account. Maybe it is, hey, in the assignment field, the first 3 letters, that's actually the transaction type. So that's going to say that it's that's going to say that whether or not it's an addition or a disposal. Or maybe it needs to be a combination of the description and the assignment and the account. So there are 3 different fields that are going to inform whether or not this category is additions or disposals or transfers. So that's where your data source rules comes in. It's populating the categories for you. And it's also going to say what your beginning balance is, right? Because you need that field as well. And that's where you start using your dates. So if your transaction dates are before your current period, well, we're going to update this field and we're going to call it beginning balance. That was the head scratcher for me when I was thinking, well, how do you get your beginning balance? There's a date rule in there as well. And in our example here, we only have the month, but I know personally I had roll forwards for the month, for the quarter, and year to date. And so you would just have 3 of these category fields. So you're constantly updating them to update your categories. And the best part is too, these can be scheduled. You would need to update the dates, for each of these categories, but the other ones could be run to update. So we've added in the fields, the categories we need, and we've added in the classification. And now we need to build the report. So within BlackLine, you can build reports off of your data sources. Sometimes it's a little tricky because you can't just look at your BlackLine reports. You have to actually add new report. So don't forget that. You need to click the blue button at the top of your reports page and click create new report, then search for matching reports, and then you can create a report off of your data source, and you select the data source you want to look at. In our scenario here, we're looking at our fixed asset data source. And then we just build out our report. If you're not familiar with building reports in BlackLine, we have workshops throughout the month on reporting and how to work with reports. So I'd recommend attending one of those. You can find those on the community or the schedule on the community. They're live and you're able to actually work in our demo instance to build reports. But building reports in BlackLine is just like building a pivot table. And in this situation, we've added in our categories, or our classifications in our rows, and then we've added our category for the month in our headers, or our column headers. So that built out our report. This is for the current period. And then once we export it, now we have this report in Excel, and we have our beginning balance and ending balance. And now your report is automated. And I don't know about you, but I was responsible for building out a roll forward for my fixed asset team, and it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do this, and BlackLine can help you with that. Okay, well, that is all for roll forwards. I think we have our last polling question coming up.
Yes, so we're actually going to have 2 polling questions back to back to make up for that one that we had some technical difficulties on. So the first polling question here, before today, did you realize matching could be used to help create journals, reconciliation supporting items, and roll forwards? So was Jess's presentation eye-opening for you, right? Are you gonna leave this and call your account manager right away and say, how can I put this into effect? So yes, are you using it for that now? No, but you can't wait to try it, or no, and you're still not exactly sure how it works. If that third one is the case, we're happy to educate you further and help you take advantage of these great strategies. So we have about 60% of you responding. I'll give you about 5 more seconds before we check out whether this was new for you or not. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So we have a good spread here. A good 38, 39% of you are using it, which is phenomenal. And love to see 46% can't wait to try it. So we can't wait to see you try it and help you get along in that path. Jess, any comments before I move to the next polling question?
No, just, if you're still not sure how this all works, just let your account manager know, or if you have a dedicated CSM, let them know and ask them questions. They're happy to answer questions on this. They can show you how it works.
Perfect. All right, next. Oh, I think we had another technical difficulty here, so I'll put this one in again. This seems to be a cursed question for us. But we have one more section for you guys before we are going to break for a short time, because this has been a lot of great content that Molly and Jess have shared with us. So we're going to go into our customer spotlight. And I know you guys are probably really excited to hear from our customer. You heard Jess kind of talk about the possibilities to go beyond and open your eyes to that. And we actually have Adam from Barron's Financial Controller today, and he's going to share how he and his team actually executed on that. So Adam, without further ado, I'm going to bring you up to share your experiences. Adam, are you there? Let's give Adam one more minute, and if not, we will break now and have Adam come back after the break.
Okay. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Oh, all right, we can hear Adam now.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute. I couldn't pull it off, so hopefully that's
no
not an
worries.
indicator of things to come. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for being here today with us, Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie, for the introduction and also for having me here. So I'm always excited to talk about our BlackLine journey. It gets me excited. And from really what Molly was saying off the top, I think it's really what, the challenges that we faced and the reason we went down this path. Sounds like a lot of companies are facing those same challenges, right? So just a quick background on our company, right? So Barron's, I'm the financial controller for Barron's North America. Barron's is a global life science chemical distributor located in the Netherlands. And then the North America wing here is headquartered near Cleveland, Ohio, is Avon, Ohio. And in my role, I'm responsible for all of our financial reporting, all of our accounting, and then our business intelligence. So kind of as Molly mentioned, the role has shifted since I've started with the company and really what the demands are of our organization. To really try to get more out of just the day-to-day pushing papers around into more, how do we evolve, how do we get more technically competent, and how do we provide better value so we're not just a cost center to the organization. So I think, that was a good intro. So thank you, Ellie.
Perfect, of course. So you might have touched on this a little bit with that comment, but What challenges did your organization face that motivated you to make a change and embrace modern accounting and finance transformation?
Yeah, I touched on it. I'll get more specific. So really, about 2 years ago, we were in a much different spot. We were fully Excel based for all of our close. And that presented all of the issues you would think it does, right? Or everybody here has probably experienced at some point. Very manual, very time consuming. Our close took 2 to 3 weeks, which is not something I'm super proud of at the time. It was a long close process. And really, there's flaws in that. Obviously, there's control issues associated with that. We would make changes related to reviews, and recs wouldn't get updated or go through the review process again. And quite honestly, we just had gaps in our process, and they were caused by the way that we did things. So that was a glaringly obvious thing that we needed to fix. And then the other was just our ability to be agile and adapt. So since I've been with the company in 2019, we have made 11 acquisitions. So for a while, we were averaging one every few months, and trying to do that in Excel was almost impossible. We couldn't adapt, and we were having trouble. We were falling behind. Our close was extending out further, and we were just having discrepancies that we weren't able to reconcile. So we had some glaring, obvious challenges, and some that were a little bit more subtle with our workforce because of those. So those were the reasons that we decided we needed to do something different.
Awesome. And I'm sure a lot of you customers on the line have faced a lot of those similar challenges. So let's hear from Adam a little bit more. What processes did you decide to modernize first, and which BlackLine solutions helped you address those processes? Can you expand on those a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So our initial thought was, let's do reconciliations and journals. To us, they were interchangeable, right? There wasn't a huge difference. Our BlackLine implementation consultants wisely told us to split those up. So we actually did reconciliations immediately followed by journals. So obviously, I think a lot of people go the reconciliation route early. So I won't spend too much time going through that, but I mean, just immediately off the bat, it was a huge win for us, right? It fixed all of those ins and out issues that we had. We would make adjustments, and the recs would automatically kick back. We had the audit trail. We made sure that nothing ever circumvented our controls. So huge win there, and we can get into some more details later on what we did to help supplement that. But then as soon as we finished the reconciliations implementation, we went directly into journals. And that one was a little bit more labor intensive. There's a lot more customization there. For anybody who's gone through that, you know what I mean. For anybody that hasn't, there's a lot of customization there. So that one took us about 4 or 5 months. And once we finished all of that, we targeted a go live of March 2020. And obviously, 1 week before our close, at least in Ohio, everything closed down with the pandemic, and everybody had to go mobile. So our first close on BlackLine journals and fully in Rex was the first month that everybody, for the first time in their career at our organization, had been totally mobile. And it was a huge success. In that first close period, we cut 5 days off the close immediately on that first cut at it. So we saw the immediate impact. We saw the value of it right off the bat. And obviously we had put a lot of work into it to get to that point, but the tool works, right? It really modernized the way that we did all of our reconciliations and journal processes. So yeah, like I said, we cut off 5 days there, and then we really were very cookie cutter, in our initial rollout of the tool. And over time, we've obviously evolved and optimized, and we can talk more about that. But basically, we went just blank, give us out of the box. We need some system that's better than Excel. And we really went, let's get speed to market, and went with that approach, and then evolved over time.
Perfect. So after your go live, and I think you talked about like a couple different go live and your next step, but how did you begin thinking of optimizing and getting your team fully on board with optimization? How did you kind of get everybody together and on board for that change attitude?
Yep. So luckily for us, nobody wanted to do it the way that we used to do it, right? Nobody wants to be working in Excel all the time and really have that highly manual process. That's what I referenced earlier, and Molly and Jess both touched on it with, keeping the workforce happy and keeping our individuals happy and challenging them, right? They've all got CPAs, they've all done a lot of work, and then they're doing some pretty basic reconciliation processes. So giving them the ability to get into some more, just to free up their time, right? To use more automation, use a more modern solution. One is right off the bat, that's a better resource for them. But two, it just freed up our close, right? As we shrunk our close down, as we automated more and more, we were able to extend what we always call our off season, right? Where we can actually do all of our project work and get people exposure to more creative things. So that was a huge thing, is one, get people involved and show them the light at the end of the tunnel. And two was the resources, though, that BlackLine offers. So we did a lot of training. So we did a lot of virtual live trainings throughout the implementation, obviously as part of the implementation, and we supplemented those with some of the BlackLine U courses. But then post go live, we really, like I said, we went basically cookie cutter on that first rollout, and then realized there's a lot of optimization and really tools that we're just scratching the surface for. So for once a month for the next 6 months we did virtual live trainings, and with the whole focus being optimization. So we challenged our team, come to those meetings, find, now we're in BlackLine, things are better, but where can it still be better? Where are you still spending too much time, or where are you still manually entering records into a reconciliation when we should automate that? Where
That's
are we not
a great
leveraging?
attitude.
Yeah.
I love those
So
monthly meetings.
that was our big piece, right? Is just getting the team together and trying to be collaborative about it. So I think that's the biggest piece that helped us along.
Yeah, but I have seen other customers kind of have that collaboration meeting, or the come to us with ideas of what you want to propose that we optimize. And I think that's really important in getting the team on board and really moving forward and having that culture of change and culture of optimization. Adam, we did have one question come in regarding what specific projects led to your ability to close quicker.
Yeah, well, it was rework, quite honestly. That was probably the biggest thing that we got rid of immediately, right? Was having to go back. I mentioned we've had multiple acquisitions. We were having to go back and change reconciliations that were in Excel, very formula based. We put a lot of work into those, but they're still not automated. So we'd have to go change things. Or we would go do a journal entry, and there was no tie from that journal entry back to those Excels or any of our rec process. So we'd have to go back and make manual changes. And that was all immediately eliminated, right? That as soon as we posted an entry and we've automated those recs, those reconciling items or those journal entries were automatically reflected and our reconciliations updated. So that was the biggest piece, is not having manual changes to recs in multiple places. You could do something in one spot and it would impact everything holistically.
That makes sense. Thanks for answering that. And keep the questions coming, everybody. We'll have a section at the end where you can ask Adam questions, but I'll also monitor the chat and pepper those in as we go. So Adam, where did you go next on your journey once you got those initial top priority use cases addressed? And if we've already hit on this, you can also kind of share what you're thinking of now and kind of going forward, what your next optimization goals are.
Yeah, well, Jess nailed it, right? That's what we did. So we were one of those use cases that were doing manual bank reconciliations, and it was awful. It was time consuming, and it was tough to meet deadlines, and it was rough. So that was the first one we did. We rolled out the bank reconciliation and matching, and it took us about a quarter to get that live. And once we did, we've, again, fully transformed the way we do our bank recs. We now reconcile every day, which we used to do it as just a single month-end task. We're able to, instantly find those differences where something got fat-fingered or something didn't get entered. One of the lockbox transactions didn't get entered or something like that, right? Things that just the daily things that happen in an organization that were very difficult to find, and we were very reactionary. We always caught those on the back end. So I won't go into the bank recs. Obviously, Jess covered it much better than I ever could, but was our first use case. And then we've now rolled that out into 2 more matching tools that we use, or 2 more use cases, I should say, match sets. The biggest one being our rebates receivable process. So that was a 7-hour project at every month end. And it was taking, in the data source world, we would have 4 or 5 data sources coming in. We'd have to do VLOOKUPs. We'd have to do a bunch of manual pivot tables, manually move things around for journal entries. And we've got that. We put it all through the matching tool. We're bringing each of those data sources in. We've got all of our pass rules written. And we've taken that 6 or 7 hour process down to less than an hour at month end. And 90% of it is automated. And it really gives our team here's the 10% of exceptions that we need to focus on and do some research on, right? So, what Jess already covered in terms of what the matching tool is, we've truly seen that come to fruition in our organization.
That's awesome. And I think Jess tried to stress, that she showed you a payroll use case, but really the underlying details and the functionality can be applied across any process, across any accounting issue. And you've shown that with your rebate rec. All right. Do you have anything in mind that you're planning to optimize next? Are those collaboration meetings? Is anybody coming to you with some good ideas?
We do have some, and I'll talk about them, but also I wrote down a few from when Jess was talking. So my team's going to get an email after this. I've got some new ideas after what I just heard.
Perfect. Love to hear that.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're going to continue rolling out reconciliations more broadly across our organization. So we're fully live in the US. We have been for a couple of years now, but we're going to expand out to all of our North America and Central America entities. So we'll continue to expand the reach there. We're finalizing variants, hopefully in the next month or 2. So we're going to start implementing that tool. Really from a comparison and analysis, again, to take out some of the work where we're doing Excel comparisons or Excel formulas and really isolate based on, again, some rules to say, this variance exceeds a percentage or a dollar threshold that we're not comfortable with, and it almost kicks out a reconciliation item that our team needs to address and sign off on. So we're excited about that one to come out in the next couple months. And then Intercompany Hub is another, probably the biggest one that we're gonna roll out shortly. So hopefully in Q4, but if not in 2023. But just as our organization has grown, intercompany is becoming a new pain point for us. It hadn't historically been. So that's one that I'm looking forward to having in place to eliminate some of the manual work we're doing today.
Good. It sounds like you guys really have continued your optimization journey, foot on the gas since you started, and that's great to hear, and I'm sure encouraging for all the customers on the line today. So last question here before we kind of open it up to any audience questions is, what advice do you have for your peers on this webinar? You've had a long journey, multiple steps in optimization, you're continuing to implement new solutions, and as businesses are changing, like you said, with intercompany, you're coming up with new ideas and new ways that BlackLine can help you. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, I think it's be creative, right? And I think we fell into the trap initially of, this is what BlackLine does. It's a reconciliation tool, right? Or it's a journal entry tool. And then that started to break a little bit when we forced our teams into, to think differently, and say, what are we doing today? Do we need to be doing it manually, right? I would contest that we need to do nothing manually. There's probably a solution for it. It's just a matter of building it. But yeah, just pushing the team of what are we doing that we think could be more efficient, and we've got a big quote on all of our meetings that you're never allowed to say because this is what we've always done or this is what we did previously. So you've got to come up with either be able to explain why you're doing it that way or come up with a different idea. So we push that hard. And the caution, though, I would say is you mentioned it, right? We went fast and we went foot on the gas because we saw the value of the tool. And it's very valuable. And we wouldn't have done anything differently, but it does take work, right? You've got to put in the effort, and it's not something that it kind of builds in the background for you. The implementation teams are fantastic, and they do, quite honestly, most of the work. But there is work from your team. So, make sure that you have the ability and the capacity to do it, and don't bite off more than you can chew, which luckily we haven't quite yet, but I think we've been close to that line. So I used to have a lot of hair. This is where we are today. So, yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate that advice. So I guess before we open it up to questions, is there anything else you want to touch on or hit that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think the team kind of laid it all out, and it was a perfect run up to my section. So I appreciate it. But yeah, no, any questions, I'm happy to answer whatever I can.
All right. Well, feel free, as you guys have been doing, to put your questions in the Q&A. And if we don't get to them, Adam will answer them separately and we can follow up with you. But we have now had some great sessions. Before we go to break, I am going to give one polling question. And I do want to just comment on the last polling question. The slides were out of order and didn't work. So don't worry, we have 12 total and you only need to answer 9 to get your full CPEs. But we did have some questions come through about how quickly it went. So just please disregard that question. And we appreciate your patience with some of our technical challenges. All right, so the next polling question, what aspect or aspects of Adam and his organization's initial challenges did you experience initially before turning to BlackLine solutions? Or you may still be having some of these challenges. Was it manual Excel-based processes, a long close process, change management issues, control issues, lack of visibility? These are some big ones that most of our customers face, and Adam touched on a couple of them early on in his session. So we will let you guys have some time to respond, but I think these are the biggest challenges we see and the reason kind of our customers step on that gas and try to implement right away, address big use cases like bank reconciliations and other items to kind of address that, shorten the close and get things out of spreadsheets and manual activities and into automation. All right, we'll give you 3 more seconds and then check out what everybody said. All right, results of our poll. We have almost 90% of manual Excel-based processes, and then some other big ones, long close, control issues, and lack of visibility. So hopefully you guys have addressed a lot of those initial challenges and are not continuing to see those. If you are, please reach out and we'll help you address those as we continue. But I think now we're going to go to the break. We really appreciate Adam, you for joining us. If you guys loved Adam's session and want to hear from him more, he will be at Beyond the Black. So this will be a little glimpse into his speaking session there. All right, we will actually probably be only taking a 5-minute break here just to get some time back, but please go to break and return to us around 12:55 Pacific time. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Adam. We'll give everyone just about 1 more minute to return from the kitchen, return from getting their coffee and taking their little stretch at their desk. Thanks for your patience. All right, everybody, welcome back to our Best Practice Summit. We appreciate your patience with our short break. We know your time is valuable, and so we want to make sure we stay on track. Next up, we have RGP and Nutrien on the Nutrien's transformation journey. I want to bring up Steve and Omar. Steve and Omar, welcome. And we really appreciate RGP being the sponsor of today's event. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you for having us, and glad to be here. Glad to share a journey, and it's even better when you hear it from the user group, from our client. And Omar, I am so glad to be able to present with you today and look forward to sharing the journey that we've been on for a little while now, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And thank you so much. Omar, do you want me to brag about you, or do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
No, I can introduce myself. It's just I brought a box of tissues to cover my tears with the whole journey between us. It was, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and pleasure. Just to give you introduction who I am, I'm Omar Ali. I'm the Senior Manager for Finance Transformation. And I've been in this journey since beginning of 2021. I was an expat with Nutrien, and Nutrien is a Canadian company for chemicals and fertilizer. We are up in Canada, the headquarters, and I was an expat for a couple of years in Australia in our company down there, and moved there during the COVID, and I don't need to go there. It's a long story. It's a nightmare, but it's great to be back home. And I've been assigned from internal audit they put me on a project for implementing BlackLine. And I'm not going to take all the thunder. So since 2021, we've been implementing BlackLine in all our different BUs. And I was honored to go through this journey until I met Steve and RGP. And that's changed my world. I don't know if it's good or bad for you, but it's amazing for us. But that's a brief about me. And I know my part will come and we'll talk. So I'll pass to you and I will talk later.
Thanks, Omar. I appreciate it. As you can tell, we have a great time working together. And like Ali said, I'm Steve McKechnie. I'm RGP's Global Practice Leader for BlackLine, and get to the enjoyment of working with clients like Omar, and get to share both personal and professional stories. And today we want to share with you our journey as a continuous improvement with Nutrien. Just real quickly, the 5-second commercial, RGP. We've been a BlackLine partner since 2006. We've done almost 500 BlackLine engagements. And one thing I'm most proud of, we're also a BlackLine customer. Had a client say that by sharing that, we must eat our own dog food. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I think it was a good thing. But I think we have a polling question coming up, Ali, and we'll get that done, and then we'll start our journey.
Yes, we do. Thanks, Steve. And I think that was a great little commercial. I like the term you used. All right, so another polling question for you guys before we kick off Steve and Omar's journey. How experienced are you and your company with BlackLine's transaction matching products? And this is a good question, but you heard about it from Adam, you heard about it from Jess, so hopefully by now you're a little bit more experienced, but are you in the demo or demo planning stage? Have you seen matching and you're interested but not using it yet? Have you just started using matching, or have you been using matching and you're ready for it to help you further? I think this will give Steve and Omar a good base to help them understand how detailed they talk about the journey and see where you guys are. So we'll give you a few more seconds to answer this. We have about 50% of you. Steve, do you have an idea of what you think the poll results will be?
Well, my first favorite part here is there's no wrong answer. So there's no wrong answers here. Everybody passes. But my guess is that we're going to have folks who've seen it sort of, kick the tires a little bit. I also bet we have some folks here who are experts and probably could teach me a thing or two about matching.
Very true. All right, let's see the results. I think you were right. We got a good range of answers here. Top people have seen matching and are interested but not using it yet, which is great. Hopefully this has been very eye-opening as to the benefits, and you'll hear more of them from Steve and Omar. And then about 30% are using it and ready to use it even further. Thanks, guys, for answering. Steve, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you. Excellent. Let me see. There we go. One of the things we've seen, and when I say we, RGP, is that there's been a real uptick over the past year or so as more and more folks are building out shared service organizations. And typical of Omar, Nutrien, ahead of the curve. And so I'm going to tee this up here to Omar real quickly, but a couple of themes that you're going to hear from us. One of them is learn, and then adapt, plan, execute, repeat. And you're going to see that throughout this journey, but you're also going to see a lot of teamwork, staying focused on the goal, being honest with each other. As you can tell, Omar and I, we've shared a lot, we've talked a lot. And so I will ask this rhetorically. My guess is some of you out there, you may relate to this, that you're forming a shared service organization or upgrading one. And so with that, there's a little bit of chaos, but there's a lot of things going on. And so this was sort of some of the ingredients that we started with. And by the way, the 567 match sets or accounts is not a typo. We started the conversation with Omar and his team talking with us going, 567. What do we do? But Omar, I'm going to ask you one of the things that we thought was, and I know that what you guys have been going through, the other typo or non-typo is 4 ERPs. Did you want to share a bit more about that, please?
Sorry, for sure. And that's why I love how you started, where to start, because I got lost. I don't know where to start. When I started the whole project, for me, it was a lot of overwhelming. It's not about to implement it, but as you mentioned, Stephen, I agree with you, it was about to find a good partner, the right partner to work with you. I don't call it consultants because what's between RGP and Nutrien, we pass consultant. We work as a one team. The smile and the laugh and the joke and all of that, it doesn't, we have to do that because we went through a lot together. And when we started, Nutrien has different ERPs. We are an SAP, Oracle, we are on PeopleSoft, different type of SAP, and these the 4 ERPs we are talking about North America. We haven't talked about Australia, which has got another 2 versions of SAP. So that's another world. So to get all of that and to go through the optimization, I know we've been talking earlier about optimization. Optimization was the easiest part of my life and that's when we did the implementation. the team, the transformation team here in Nutrien, we are the one who was doing this optimization and trying to find all these candidates. And after that, the point is, when I got all these 567 match set reconciliation accounts, that I need to just pull the trigger, turn on the light, and let that go with transaction matching. It was not that easy. A lot of people, they said, we'll do it internally, like we learn, we go and get the license. It needs a lot of resources. It needs a lot of support. And that's where we found RGP. And that's how it started over a year, the relationship between both of us. It's like how we go there, how we start that, and it was not only, it was how to put a plan, how to let the business buy it and agree on it. And the hardest part is the learning, how to change the people mentality and how they're thinking of reconciliation, not only from account reconciliation module, I'm talking about transaction matching module, that they're not going to pull the statement, they're not going to do the tick and tack and all of that. Yes, I know all these words, it's coming from the video from BlackLine, but it's true. When you live it and you figure out that, no, people still attached to the old way, to the old design, to the old how they are thinking. This was a great challenge, not only for Nutrien, but for RGP, because they help us with this. They help us with training the people, with trying to make them understand how automation can be not only cost effective, but it's a time effective for them. How to make people, like, instead of just go and wait for the statement, and going to, run to the printer to pick it up, to, oh, it got matched. It's just run the engine. And I love the word run the engine. So that's, I will try I try to make it too short and not to talk a lot, but I love to talk a lot. But all what I'm saying, it's really a journey that's not ended, a journey that it's going on and on. When I met Steve last year, in June last year, not this June, I thought it's going to be just a matter of 6-month project, a year project. We still a year now, almost year and a half, and we're still continuing and going forward and forward and forward. It's like, kind of addiction. As I said, sorry, I'm an old man. So I will go for, Botox, and I figured, oh, no, I need to pull my eyes. No, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to implement hair. So it's like that. It's on and on. As you get into it, you'll love it. The organization feel how benefit it is. And I have to give the appreciation that who taught us this? It was RGP. I cannot deny it.
Thank you, Omar. No, it's been a total team effort. And as we have been learning Nutrien processes, culture, and as you're building your team and we're sharing, here's what to do in BlackLine, leveraging BlackLine University, as well as things that we have seen, and really helping that team form, come together. And then your team actually serves other Nutrien employees and helping them. So it was helping your team form, learn, and then they in turn could help your users. And that's why we have here at that bottom, it's that pace and collaboration. With all the chaos, this is, one of the great things that Omar and his team have done is bring the calm and bring the focus. And it's like, well, if there's a challenge, what else can we learn? How do we change our approach? Do we have a different training class? What do we do? And so this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that learn, adapt, plan, execute, and repeat. And so it was off to a good start. And so out of the 567, we're like, Omar, I know you just want to flip the switch. We just can't do all of them at once. As much as I would love to do all of them at once. And so we went through several iterations and said, let's find a quick win and a big rock. because some of the challenges we also had were technical. Not all of the integrations were in place yet. Had just gone live with Rex and TAS, and other regions and groups were being rolled out. And so let's start with a quick win and a big rock. Let's see what we can do. So out of the 567, we picked 2. And it was also, Omar, and I know that your management was also very keen, not just on prove that it works, but I know that you kept getting asked a lot about a business case. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks on the call today who are going, Omar, I'm right there. I may need some help. I may call you, may email you, but I know that you had to make sure that as you were forming your team, you also had to build out that business case. And then that was also, if I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, an iterative process internally at Nutrien. What was it that I know you tasked us with doing some work as well, but what was it you found that best resonated with your management?
Actually, it was also with management to buy or to accept the quick win and big rock was a huge challenge. Because, like, especially when you get to senior management and you start asking, okay, I'm automating this. You need to do a business case. The business case, it's not about implementing it. It's the outcome. What's this going to come at the end? What's the result? Like sometimes, and every business, we are at the same boat. Everybody's around, everybody understands. It's all about cost. But if you will be able, and that's what me and Steve, we did it together with a quick win and big rock, is we got 2 examples, 2 accounts. One was intercompany and one was bank. And we took it and we did the switch to transaction matching. And I took it to the OPCO, the Operation Committee meeting, which is most of our VPs and senior executives. And I presented to them, like, what's the benefit? And it was a great 5-minute presentation. I haven't did any slide deck. I haven't prepared anything. It was a demo. I showed them a demo. I showed them the outcome. I showed them how, like, for example, like the matching between the BI file, the bank file, and the subledger, how this comes within a second is just, and I took them to the back, like, I know maybe it was too much details for them, but I took them how we, put the past rules together, all the rules, and how we just go and run a button. Within a second, you will get at least, it was about, I think, 80 to 90% got matched. And this has got improved because, like they don't, when we started this, I thought that this is 80 to 90%. That's great. So people will reduce their time and effort that's been, all the manual effort that's been put, 80% of it, it's already gone. It's, like, and you need to focus on the unmatched one. And the beauty of this, it was not only the unmatched one, the unmatched also come to you in a format that's easy to do. So when they saw it, they felt how it's going to be improved or how it's going to take us to another level of automation. This was the first thing, and as we presented, they accepted and they loved it. And they gave me the green light to go with phase 2. And as soon as I got it, I ran to Steve and I said, Steve, help me. I have 500 subs. I need help. I can't do it. Because immediately they asked, can you do it by? I said, with the magnitude and the number, you need experience and knowledge. And I can say that we gain a lot of experience and knowledge from RGP over this year, more than anywhere else. But what I'm saying is these were the way that the business felt how much automation can help us and move us to another. And that's what's all transformation about, is automation. It's how to go forward, is what's the future is. And the future is all about automation. I'm not going to talk too much. You know, Steve, I can take
No,
the whole.
perfect. but it's also you're talking also that not only was your team learning, and your users were beginning to learn, but you were also the executives were learning as well. Everybody having a different perspective, but everybody's learning and marching together. And so after a quick win and a big rock and everybody's like thumbs up, that's when Omar came to us and said, okay, I'm going to challenge you now, do 100. And so with phase 2, it's like, we want to do 100, cash, bank, intercompany, and different user groups, data, IT support teams. And where I said earlier about adapting, well, we descoped 60, but then Omar said, well, let's add 80. So I think we wound up with like 140 of them, but lots of learnings on the way. And we also learned a bit about how the IT team was organized and who had availability and who didn't. And we had to adjust for that as well. But part of this also now, really leveraging the benefits of a shared service organization, now we're getting into scale. And so this is where things got interesting. And what else could we do? How can we change and make things better? So one of the things, and like I said earlier, and Omar and I keep talking about training and learning. Trust me, Omar and I are sponges. We love to learn. And with that, one of the things that we started doing, all the training sessions, we recorded them and then made them available for reuse, reference. And then as the organization grew and as people's roles changed, use it for onboarding. And so making sure that consistency, the continuity of this is how we do things now was shared with everybody. So Omar, I know that we got a great punchline there at the bottom, but what have I missed? What else?
Yeah, that is something I want to highlight it because a lot of people, they will ask why banks, and I want to make a little bit that the second phase was mainly about bank, because that's when the senior VPs and senior management, they opened their wallet and they said, okay, we're opening our wallet, and that's the way how you get it. It's like when you go to your wife and I said, okay, I'm going out with my friends, and she will ask you a lot of things, but she needs to open the wallet. And that's what they ask. And they ask, why can't we benefit first from banks? All this bank reconciliation, like we're talking, we are an organization that we have 4 different ERPs. So you can imagine, and we are global company. So imagine how many bank accounts do we have, and how many all these banks reconciliation that happen on every month, because according to the policy, any cash accounts, they are all high risk and it's on a monthly frequency. So in a situation like this, like they said, we want all the bank cracks to be automated. We wanted to. So we work on that. And as you said, we had 140 and still, we are still on the run. It's not over yet.
The journey continues.
Yeah.
Even with this amount, I mean, we went and calculated it. Omar and I calculated it, and then we got challenged on it. We calculated again and again. So I think about 3rd or 4th iteration, but we still came out with thousands of manual and administrative hours saved annually. And to Omar's earlier point, where the administrative burdensome stuff got removed, and now all the accountants, all of the folks, the team members have to do, the users, just focus on the ones that didn't match up. So it freed up a lot of the administrative burden, and now they could do the analysis that they're wired to do. It's what they're hired to do, be the numbers detective, do the analysis. Now they have the time to do it. One of the things we didn't include here is that we found that some resources, some of the users, and one guy in particular, holy cow, he had more account responsibility for more accounts than I could count. And other folks didn't have as much. So it gave some visibility for the business to do a bit more, to do some workload balancing. And therefore folks weren't going to get, you know, one person wasn't going to get overwhelmed while another person is wondering what else could they do. So it provided more and more visibility into what was going on. And then after that, Omar said 200. You know, I want to do 200, all cash and bank. And so this is back to that iteration about adapting and adjusting, planning, executing. This is around, well, if it's important to the executives, then it's important to us as well. So let's focus on the cash bank accounts and let's start getting this put together. And as we've talked about the different ERPs, if I remember correctly, we have SAP ECC, SAP S4, PeopleSoft, and Oracle. So one of the things that we agreed to do was let's break this out in the work streams instead of user groups. Let's break it out by ERP. And that seemed to be very, very helpful and useful. And it allowed us certain ERPs we could go faster, others needed more time. And it actually helped expedite the rollout of phase 3, which is what we're in the midst of right now. And then I'm going to brag on Omar's team. All of them have been fantastic, but it was really good as that team. You know, I think the change management term is storm, form, and norm, or something like that. I'm sure I got it wrong. Our change management consultants are going to get all over me about that. But how the role of the project manager, system administrators, and users all elevated. It was getting the training and then the realization, oh my gosh, look at all of the things that we're now able to do because BlackLine's automated all of this. And so it was really, really cool to see that maturation of the org as we have gone through this journey. Like Omar said, it's been over a year, and it's just been really great to see how this has just grown and the organization has matured. And as we're doing more, and I know Omar's going to challenge us to do more, but I'm going to stop there because I see that smile on Omar's face. He's like, let me tell you some more.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I agree with you 100%. It's the team. Both team sides. It's not only RGP. It's the team, like the system admin, the project manager, all my team in finance transformation, that they were actually like hungry to learn about it. And that's why we both work very close to each other. And we came out with all this outcome, the beauty of this outcome. And we still, because the journey for transaction matching doesn't end by implementing it or turning on the button, as I always say. It's not a switch. It's not a light switch. You turn it on and it's done. No, because you look at it, and that's why I admire my team and I admire our system admin, because she worked very closely with Steve's team and she started learning, because she will go back and she will change in the past rule or modify it and improve it. Because as you go, as I said, it started with 80-90%. No. That's not what we are looking for. We're looking for close to 100%. I want 98 to 99%. I want, like fully automation. And all of that happened gradually, but it won't happen, like I know with RGP, they put us on the right track, but you cannot survive all the time because, as we said, we started from the big rock and, like 200 to 200. So as they are working on that, we don't need to forget the old one. The old one, you need to continue work. But the beauty of this also, that RGP is always supporting us, is always backing us up, so that when we need them, we just, okay, call a friend. Hello, we are there. Okay, I'm changing this rule, because it's easy to change the rules and you messed up everything. So it's always for the safe side. Do it at the sandbox, test it at the sandbox, be sure it's working. And before we always go to RGP, to Steve and his team, and said, okay, can you tell us, is this is good enough or not? Because you don't want to mess up anything. And this is lesson learned because we have hiccup, and we did some hiccup in the sandbox. And I know Steve will laugh about that. It was on phase 2, but we're not getting into that.
It's water under the bridge.
It's a journey. It's a journey that no way that we can do it without RGP. Really, we really appreciate it, and I'm looking for more and more. And actually, we're looking for, and I'm not going to talk about it, there is the 3 ways, not the 3 ways, the AR, and on, and Australia, and on. So it's not the end of the journey. The journey, I don't think with automation, there will be end for the journey.
Excellent. Thank you, Omar. And one of the things I found interesting, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier, that spreadsheet, 567, it's grown. But one of the things we do with BlackLine is you try to get folks out of spreadsheets. So Omar and his team, the sysadmin, have developed a report in BlackLine to pull out the completed accounts and can have that as a regular report, as opposed to, say, emailing spreadsheets or putting a spreadsheet in a SharePoint site. Actually using BlackLine, what it does, so that these completed match sets, having that report come out so everybody has that single version of the truth. So this has been our journey, and we, I believe, are going to have a polling question before going into Q&A. And what we want to also let you know, Omar and I will be at Beyond the Black. So if you want to come track us down, ask us questions. If we don't have time here, or you think of it afterward and before Beyond the Black, by all means, feel free to come track us down, ask us all sorts of questions.
For sure, you'll buy me a drink. You will buy, and he will buy you a drink. Steve will buy us drink.
I will buy you a drink. Yeah, Omar and I have talked. We will buy each other a drink at the open bar.
Good one. Thank you.
So,
Perfect.
Allie, I think we have a polling question.
We do. Our polling question, everybody, is how many more CPE hours do you have to get by the end of the year? And I think Steve was very strategic in this question, and in letting you know right at the time he was telling you he'll be at Beyond the Black, because there's plenty of opportunities there to get your CPE hours. And I just want to take this time while you guys are answering the polling question to thank Steve and Omar. We really appreciate it. I think your presentation went perfectly with Adam's piece of advice on not biting off more than you can chew and really being strategic in your approach, which you guys in your phased approach, really, it seems like you laid out a perfect plan and were very strategic and have seen such success. Omar, you are so passionate and energetic, and I love that. It has come through so much in your presentation and sharing with us and our customers. That's one of my favorite things about speaking with customers and having you present on these webinars, is just seeing how passionate you are in your transformation. So thank you both for being here.
No, thank you for having us. And I just want to say one more thing, Ali. My apology for my accent, but
no.
I can't hide it. I try.
I love
appreciate
it.
You're Canadian, and we love you for it.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right. So the polling question is now closed, and we see most of you fall in the bucket of needing some more hours. So please join us and Steve at Beyond the Black.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Just due to time, we're probably going to have Steve answer those questions offline and continue with our presentation. Steve, any final words before we move on to Steven showcasing some product highlights?
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you spending time with us. I hope it's been helpful. And as you can tell, Omar and I really enjoy working together, and look forward to seeing you at Beyond the Black, or send us an email with any questions you have. So thank you very much. Allie, thank you.
Thank you for having
Steve.
me,
Thanks
too.
so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, I'm now going to invite Stephen Wolfman up to join us for product highlight section. Stephen, you may recognize him from some previous best practice summits. He took a little hiatus and we're really happy to have him back. Welcome, Stephen. Stephen, are you there? We'll give Stephen a minute to hopefully successfully unmute and join us. Stephen, we cannot hear you. We'll give you a bit to test, and then we can skip to Michael's section to introduce us to Beyond the Black and come back to you if we can't hear you in the next few seconds. All right, I think we're gonna go with that approach. Michael,
hey, Allie, how's it going?
Welcome you on.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm really excited to be here with all of you to talk about Beyond the Black. I don't know how many of I should have done a polling question of this session or this section just to see how many of you have been to Beyond the Black before. But if you have been, it's been a while since we've been in person. We've done a couple of virtual events since then, but I am really excited to announce that Beyond the Black is going to be in person at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. And we have been working so hard, long days, long nights, to curate an amazing agenda for you. Just a couple of really quick highlights. You can see here it starts on November 7th, 8th, and 9th. On Monday, the program really starts off at 1 p.m. We do have some pre-conference workshops if you're looking for additional CPE, but that's for a small extra fee. On both of the other 2 days, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we start with some great keynotes from that'll have some BlackLine executives, some of our amazing customers, maybe some of you in the audience today. And then on Wednesday, we're going to wrap up with with Alex Hunold and a keynote by him. And if you're not familiar with him, he's the gentleman who did the climb with the documentary Free Solo. So we've got a lot of great content, a lot of amazing opportunities for you to learn. But then on Tuesday, we're also going to have a little happy hour with our sponsors where you'll get to see Steve and Omar. And on Wednesday night, we're going to wrap up the conference with a fun event at Topgolf Las Vegas. But just another couple of quick highlights. You know, we're having over 100 sessions, over 11 BlackLine U workshops. And for those of you who are familiar with BlackLine U workshops, great opportunity to have some hands-on and really dive into the product. Over 35 different customer speakers. So obviously not just do we have customer speakers, but we're going to have over 1,000 of other customers there at the event. So, you know, it's a great opportunity to learn from your peers. And even more exciting for those of you who needed the CPE, we're going to have the opportunity for you to earn over 20 CPE. And there's going to be different ways to earn that. Part of it is going to be at the event, whether you attend the pre-conference workshops, and then you as customers will get the opportunity to earn 10 additional CPEs, probably around from December 1st all the way through March 1st, through some free CPE offerings from BLU, no different than we did last year, if you remember or took advantage. So lots and lots of opportunities. I know we're running short on time, but I just want to cover a couple other quick things, right? Just some things you should know. Register now. Space is still available. There's still room at the hotel, but I wouldn't wait too long. I would try to get in there as soon as possible. Bring in as many of you, you and your colleagues as you can, so you can split up. Like I said, over 100 sessions. Obviously, there's no way you could attend all those live. So bring people, split up, attend different sessions, take advantage of all the amazing networking opportunities, with the partners, with BlackLine executives, but also the opportunity to go into the sandbox, talk to some of our product experts. And if we get Stephen back, maybe he'll talk a little bit about that and how you can really have input on the future of BlackLine, but then just test out new things that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to work with before. So again, it's so much fun. I don't even know how many of these I've attended. This is my 7th as an employee, a handful more when I was a customer, but it really is a great time. If you have any questions about Beyond the Black, don't hesitate to email beyondtheblack@blackline.com, and we will try to get all of your questions answered pretty quickly. But before I turn it back over to Allie and see where we wrap up, I just want to show this fun video that we pulled together. It really helps us to think about, what it's like to do an event in person. And I know personally, I'm very excited about being in person. So with that, a little video, and then I'll turn it back over to Allie. Well, if that doesn't get you in a good mood to come out to Las Vegas, I don't know what will. So again, really hope to see you in Las Vegas. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Allie. And thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Perfect.
Hi, Allie, can you hear me now?
Yes, Stephen, we can.
Oh, wonderful.
Perfect.
There we go.
Welcome back, Stephen.
We'll go through this
Thank
polling
you,
question first on Beyond the Black and what you're looking forward to at this year's Beyond the Black. And then we'll jump back to Stephen and make sure you guys get some highlights on products. So here is our polling question. What are you looking forward to at this year's Beyond the Black? Is it the keynote speakers that Michael mentioned, Top Golf, networking with your peers, exploring new automation and transformation opportunities, or like Michael and like myself, finally being in person again and having those face-to-face interactions? So we'll give you guys a little bit more time to answer, but Stephen has been at many of these. So Stephen, can you share some fun anecdotes with us or a favorite memory from Beyond the Black?
Well, the Beyond the Black's always my favorite time of year as far as, the professional year goes. I'm really looking forward to being back in person because I have never experienced conferences with as much engagement, enthusiasm, challenge as we do have. Our customers they're engaged. They come to play when we go to conference. The questions we get in the sandbox are always detailed and deep, full of ideas and everything. Really looking forward to it again this year.
Awesome. All right, let's see what everyone else is looking forward to. We'll close the poll now and see the results. Love to see exploring new automation and transformation opportunities. That's one of the main reasons we put this on. So we're really excited that that is your top priority for things you're looking forward to. All right, Stephen, let's get you going back to the product highlights. So off to you and take it over.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for having me back on the BPS circuit. It's good to be presenting this stuff again. And so I'd like to go through kind of what our product release highlights are. Ironically, we'll start with some connectivity, considering I couldn't actually connect to the platform here for a bit. So as far as kind of improved connectivity, security around that as well, we've introduced a couple of things on the journal side, a new API for journals to increase integration and interaction directly with the journals product, and also additional security protocols around that for journal posting via web services. We have enhanced from a feature capability and a performance perspective our connectors for Oracle EBS R12 ERP. And so that has increased kind of the scope of those data extracts to get that data from the ERP into your BlackLine processes to include coverage for subledgers for balances transactions. And on the AR Cash side, the AR Cash app supports the transfer of the payment and the remittance advice documents to your ERP billing system now as well. So really closing the loop on the processes there. As far as overall efficiency plays, we've enhanced some logic in transaction matching. So you can now have a not equal to operator under pass rules, which allows for a more efficient use of those. So overall, increasing the efficiency to our matching processes. On the visibility front, for journals, there is increased interaction with the dashboard. So another widget that allows visibility into user and team assignments for each certification status. And for account analysis, we've brought that in line with the account reconciliation templates as well. So you can get quicker visibility into the account information for those account analysis templates, account analysis accounts in those templates. We've introduced a mobile app. So we've launched a new mobile app that allows you to have the power of journal entries in your hand as well, so that you can certify, add comments to journal entry records directly through a phone or a tablet. So really bringing kind of that journals capability on the go. Overall, with our imports and data, we have been kind of shoring those up. There's a new import status and compliance API to get more detail programmatically on those imports than you could previously. So similar to how you can get those through the application, but now you can do it kind of programmatically in a more integrated way. And data source rules can now be run automatically as well for an efficiency play there. And then from a user management perspective, so this one goes into kind of the controls and the compliance around the user accounts within BlackLine. There are some new user management APIs that will allow direct access to that user management for those of you who may be running identity governance or centralized identity systems and want to control the BlackLine user accounts from there instead of within BlackLine. So everything can be central within your organization. Those user management APIs are there for you. If we move on to, we've kind of covered these already as far as the favorite BlackLine features goes. I'm going to provide these kind of more of an overview. We've seen the details here in Jess's presentations earlier. If we look at the top rows, those are all the building blocks that go through for those end-to-end automations. So really being able to get that data, have that data run through those processes in an automated way to enhance the visibility in the areas of those processes as well. Think about those bank reconciliations and the fixed asset subledger reconciliations as well with everything afterwards. These are all the steps that go forward, allow you to go forward and put those automations together from these blocks. And then if we look at those bottom rows, these are all little plays that allow for more control, efficiency, and visibility. So being able to assign risk rating via a rule to keep that under control. Being able to provide different allocation across cost centers and businesses for how to get those transactions into journal entries through automation. And then more visibility or more ways of getting visibility by adding different data points and being able to slice and dice the data through summary descriptions so that you can then take a look through reporting, for example, and get greater visibility and granularity into that visibility of where you are. And now we have another polling question for which BlackLine favorite feature do you like the most?
Perfect. So let us know. This is the second to last polling question, so please be sure to answer and get your CPE credits in. Let us know what favorite feature you like the most. And we have had a few questions come in about product plans and kind of status on certain things. And what I would say to you all there is come to Beyond the Black, right? Michael told you there'll be a lot of announcements and a lot of great insight into the future. So please join us there. We will answer your questions in the Q&A, but the best way to find out what's happening is to be in Las Vegas in November. I will give you guys a little bit more time, close the poll in about 5 seconds. All right, so let's see what your favorite features are. The big one was, I just love that BlackLine saves me time. I figured that might be the case. All right, Stephen, I'll turn it to you for just the next slide, and then we'll head into a little bit on the collaborative accounting experience. Back to you.
Thank you, Ali. So a quick note of the BlackLine Customer Research Program. What is this? This is from our research team. This is so that our customers can have more of a say and more input into where we go from a product perspective in terms of what we're building into the products and ensuring that they're validated and with our customers and that we're not missing anything. And so how may that benefit you personally? Well, you get to see first degree what we're coming out with, the new designs, the new technology, the new functionality we're planning, and you get to provide your input and feedback to ensure that we're building the right thing for as many customers as possible. What does that involve? Well, there is a pool of customers that we reach out to for product research, and this will allow you to be added to that. And then you'll hear from us in the form of interviews, surveys, usability studies, focus groups, things like that, to get your input, to get your feedback, so that we can help us move the product forward the best way we can. And there is a sign-up link available in the Resource Center. So I will thank you in advance for that.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. And you guys all have your Resource Center available to you with some additional links. While we're on the topic of your audience console, there is a survey in there if you haven't seen it already. We really appreciate if you would fill that out. We really take your feedback into account as we build out future best practice summits and other webinars. So please take the time to answer that for us. So now we're going to head into our final section of the summit, and we appreciate you guys for staying on and listening. We hope so far this has been really helpful for you in opening your eyes to different end-to-end automation opportunities, new product highlights, and all that jazz. So this section is really on additional resources for your success. Hopefully you guys have been taking advantage of some of these different offerings that we have, from BlackLine U to accelerator courses, to global support, the Optimization Academy, the community, or even Catalyst. You know, hopefully you've been doing some coffee breaks or some customer success workshops. We're really here to help you and to guide you along your journey, to connect you with your fellow peers and your fellow customers, and we're really committed to this space, as Molly said in her keynote. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly so that we have time at the end for some Q&A. But one of the biggest resources we have for you is BlackLine U. And we really hope you're taking advantage of all the great content in here, from complimentary e-learning to additional training options. Also within BlackLine U are the accelerators. And if you were with us on the last Best Practice Summit, we went into a lot of detail on the accelerators and how they can help you optimize. So these are specific courses within BlackLine U, and these courses are rooted in leading practices that build upon your foundation and provide step-by-step instructions. So this is a specific catalog within BlackLine U, and it helps enable transformations surrounding automation and rule control, metrics-driven continuous improvement, reconciliation optimization, and settings and role control. So this is a little bit more of an elevated catalog. It's not your first step on your training journey. This will be kind of how you can go further, or really how you could go beyond what you're doing and really tap into those details. So the BlackLine community is another great resource. BlackLine community is a one-stop shop for all of your virtual BlackLine resources and allows you to collaborate with both BlackLiners and your peers. Hopefully you're all using that very actively, chatting with each other, finding out questions. I know we get a lot of our customers answering other customers' questions, which is amazing and great to see, and we love that. So there's forums in here, there's support portals, events, champion rewards. You can earn points and you can cash out for fun prizes. There's a lot of stuff in this community, and it's really great to just have at your fingertips. So next is our last polling question. How often are you going to BlackLine U or the BlackLine community for enablement? Let's hear how often you're using those resources, see if you can utilize them more. So we just want to see how you're doing in your enablement in these two resource platforms. We'll give some time for you guys to respond. Hopefully you're using it at least sometimes, if not all the time, and really capitalizing on those resources we have for you. We have about 50% of you have answered this so far, so I'll give it another minute. But the BlackLine U and the community are phenomenal resources. Adam touched on it in his presentation and really let everybody know that they took lots of training and they really enabled their team from that standpoint. All right, we will close the poll in 3, 2, 1 and see how everybody is doing. Great, we have a lot of sometimes, a good amount of all the time. And for those of you that never use it, I hope other members of your team are using it, or if you have trouble accessing it, please let us know and we can get you further enabled and using all of those resources that are there to help you succeed. All right, the Optimization Academy is another resource for you. This is led by finance and accounting professionals, and it really helps showcase the possibilities with BlackLine. I know Jess in her end-to-end automation session referenced the BlackLine Optimization Academy and that there are specific sessions on roll forwards and enhancing your data within BlackLine. So there are various sessions here and they're offered in various lengths and forms to meet your scheduling and transformation needs. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, let your account manager know. There's also information on our website. But this is a great program with some notable alumni and customers that have attended it and really helped move their journey along and just opened their eyes to what possibilities are out there. So these are the different options for the BlackLine Optimization Academy offered just to meet your different needs. And then lastly here are catalysts, which you might also recognize from our previous Best Practice Summit. So catalysts are targeted use cases designed to further integrate and optimize your accounting processes. They basically take your modern accounting journey to new heights. We have a growing library of catalysts that are targeted solutions for bank recs, which Jess touched on earlier, and so did Adam, for clearing account reconciliations, for intercompany reconciliations, and our two newest ones for journal entry management. So that really concludes our Best Practice Summit for today. Given how much we've just soaked up and how much great content we've gone through, I want to go through a slight recap before we end things. Putting F&A first regarding transformation, as Molly said, really is a no regrets approach that enables you to have end-to-end process automation and build that capacity for your team to focus on strategic priorities. Jessica, Adam, Steve, and Omar showcased some real-life use cases that can be addressed via BlackLine solutions. From bank recs to payroll and more, matching and other BlackLine solutions can help automate any accounting process. Stephen and Michael went into detail on product highlights and what to expect at this year's Beyond the Black. As Michael said, it's not too late to register. The link is in your resource center, so please join us. We're available if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out to your account manager. It's really going to be a fun one this year, and we really hope to see you there. Again, if you haven't filled out the survey in the platform, we'd greatly appreciate it if you would take the time to do so now before you log off. And really, wherever you are in your modern accounting journey, we're here to guide you along, and we're committed to your success. We hope this webcast opened your eyes to the possibilities with BlackLine, and I encourage you to take action and embrace continuous transformation. All right, that concludes our September Best Practice Summit. Thank you so much for joining us and for your engagement throughout. Have a great rest of your day. Bye now.